Folks, welcome back to Nostalgianomics. Do not invest in Pokemon singles. You will lose all your money. I'm not kidding you. Unless you are the best card picker in the entire world and you find the handful of cards in each era that actually rise in value over time, you're most likely going to lose money. And I understand a lot of us get what I call collector brain. And what collector brain is, it's you trying to justify to yourself all the reasons you can possibly come up with on why this time will be different. This card is iconic. This Pokemon is what everyone is going to want in the future. It's pretty hard to grade. It's got a low population. I don't think this set was printed as much. This card is not printed that heavily. It's hard to hit. It's a really rare card, hard pull rate. All these different things, right? And in the end, even the best characters, the most iconic cards, the one everyone wanted at the time, have eroded in price and they've never recovered and they've continued to lose people money and go flat over time. So I've got all the data today. I'm going to show you. Hopefully this helps. And hopefully I save a lot of especially newer collectors from a lot of these pitfalls, especially with the first to market plays. Let's talk about first to market plays first, and then we'll get into some of the other singles out there and how to play them. So, first to market plays. The Greninja just happened with Twilight Masquerade. As you can see, back July 4th of this year, we have an $820 sale on Greninja. Fast forward to now, just a few months later, mind you, the card's already selling for around $500 plus. And it's probably going to continue to erode lower from there. Now, the single actually is holding up relatively well. It saw highs in the high 200s. Now it's starting to dip into more of the mid 200s, but it's holding up relatively well compared to the PSA 10. I personally think this card and the PSA 10 will continue to drop over time, which we'll get into a little more later. But the reason you saw such an enormous drop on the PSA 10 and why you will continue to is right here, guys. You can go to psacard.com, you can go to research, and you can, look up the population reports of every card. So here is the Greninja right here, number 214. There's 1,803 PSA 10s. There's 2,863 graded. If you do the math, that's over 60% of these cards are getting PSA 10s. If you don't know by now, that's not hard to grade. This is not a difficult PSA 10 to find. Now, it is a pretty hard card to hit. However, it's not harder to hit than any of the hardest to hit cards in the past. XY, Sun and Moon, Sword and Shield, and so on. And with that being said, the reason you see the prices dip so much, like from 800 to 500, is because eventually that euphoria wears off and people start to think about things logically, looking at the actual data and realize, yeah, I don't want to pay that much for that card. It doesn't make sense. And all the people buying at release are stuck holding the bag and they consistently lose money. All the Timmies lose money every single time. The Houndoom is a play that just happened with Shrouded Fable. We had sales going for $470. That is already down to in the mid 200s. It's at $240 or best offer. It's not selling. This will most likely continue to drift under $200 and probably in the mid hundreds, maybe even under $100 in the future. It's literally only a $20 card. It's not hard to pull. It's not like it's incredibly hard to pull this card, and it's not that hard to grade, guys. The Houndoom right here, number 066, there's 71 PSA 10s already out of 138 graded, meaning there's over a 50% 10 rate. That's not hard to grade, guys. There's a lot of special or illustration rares that are extremely hard to grade. This is not one of them, meaning the price point for these graded copies are not justified for a $20 card. A 50+% 10 rate does not justify a 10x or 20x multiple on a $20 card when it's a Houndoom, which is kind of popular, but it's not extremely popular of a species. Therefore, this card will most likely continue to deteriorate over time. For anyone that bought them or is holding them, I'm sorry. If you did grade one, I would sell immediately. I would not hold this card. Next up, the Terapagos. It's all the rage right now. It's going for $550 at auction. You see other auctions ending similar, $455, and they're not even ended yet. They're probably going to break $500. Again, I would not be buying this card. Literally, it's a $125 or less card. There's listings now as low as under $110 for this card near mint. This card will probably drift under $100 a card. It's done nothing but go down after release, okay? And if you look at the population report, there's not a lot graded yet because it's brand new. However, there's already 11 10s out of 18 graded. Over a 50% 10 rate already. It's probably going to stay that way. There is no reason for a card that's that easy to grade to have a 5x multiple on the PSA 10. Okay? This is not going to continue. If you're buying this card, it's a mistake. If you are holding this card because you're one of the 18 that have graded the 10 or the 11 that have graded the 10, I would auction it or I would sell it immediately. You can take that money and buy it back in the future in 3, 6, 9 months for less, and you can take the rest of the money and buy a whole slew of other cards that you wanted that we'll get into in a second that have done nothing but go down over time. Now, a lot of people want to point to outliers, and we're going to talk about outliers too, but they always say, Alex, the Magikarp. What do you have to say about the Magikarp? That was only a $40, $50 card. It ran all the way up to $130, and now it's still holding over $100 a card, Alex. What do you have to say? Hold on, let me go ahead and sort by near mint so we get exactly where it's at. $103.99 is the lowest near mint Magikarp on the market. How do you explain that one? Well, a few things. One, Paldea Evolved, although it isn't the hardest pull rates, it is the largest amount of hits in the set in the entire era. There are 51 total illustration and special illustration rares in that set, making it the most amount of pulls in any set in the era. With that being said, even though Magikarp isn't necessarily harder to hit than any of the other illustration rares, it's harder to hit the specific card. So it's actually harder to hit Magikarp specifically than any specific card in the other sets, meaning it does have one of the hardest illustration rare pull rates. Not only that, it's actually hard to grade. There's actually a chase there. There's only 1,265 10s out of 5,505 graded, making it about a 22 to 23% PSA 10 rate. That is extremely hard. And when there is an extremely hard PSA 10 rate, you will see a multiple on the PSA 10 that is justified. And when you see that multiple, you will see the single rise in price as well because people will be buying them, trying to grade them, trying to hit that multiple and make that margin. So that's why the Magikarp is where it is. But again, this is an outlier scenario. This is not the norm. What is the norm? This is the norm. Iono. This was the top card in Paldea Evolved before Magikarp took off. It's done nothing but erode in value over time. The Charizard from Obsidian Flames erode in value over time, okay? The Roaring Moon from Paradox Rift, it erodes in value over time. The Iron Crown, which was the top hit before the Raging Bolt, before Iron Crown fell off, remember, it eroded in value over time. Now, the Raging Bolt is now the top card, but it's, it was playable at one point, and now it's, more loved because it got playable, and now it's more collected, but Iron Crown, eroded in value. Raging Bolt's been coming down as well. Okay. Now we're going to go back to other eras and look at some of the most iconic cards of other eras, the most chased after, the most collected, the ones people said were the best investment, the best card to buy. You got to hold this card. Okay, let's look at some of those. The Charizard GX from Burning Shadows. If you weren't around in Sun and Moon, this card was all the rage. The first Rainbow Rare Charizard. Everybody wanted this card. And it was pretty difficult to grade. You can see here, the grading is hard. There's only 27.5% PSA 10, only 810 in existence. Even with having a low PSA 10 rate, a hard to grade card, it's a Charizard for crying out loud. The best character ever. Rainbow Rare, the best thing at the time. It ran up with COVID. After COVID, it did nothing but erode in value and go stagnant over the last 3 years, and it's done nothing for your investment. Moving on, the Evolutions Charizard, one of the hardest cards to grade in Modern, right? There's been 19,000 PSA 9s, only 498 of them have come back in a PSA 10. Very difficult, 2.5% chance on a 10. Extremely difficult to grade, okay? So if any card had a chance, right? Most beloved character in Pokemon's history. Very low PSA 10 rate. Everyone was chasing this card. Everyone wants a Charizard. It's a reprint of base set. It's the first time this has happened since really Legendary Collection. Stormfront really doesn't count. Still, the Charizard, even after the COVID pump, it's done nothing but erode in value over time. Okay? We have the Mewtwo tag team, the Mewtwo tag team from Unified Minds. The top hit of the time. This card was loved. It was chased after. Everyone loves Mewtwo. Everyone loved the tag teams, the rainbows, all that stuff when Unified Minds was released. Now, it is easier to grade, over 50% 10 rate. Keep that in mind. It's done nothing but run up with COVID and then erode in value and go stagnant over time. Okay, guys, if you weren't around for Unbroken Bonds, this used to be the top hit in the set for the longest time, okay? The Reshiram Charizard Tag Team GX. When I tell you this was one of the most chased after cards of Sun and Moon, it doesn't give it justice. Everybody was talking about this card and wanted this card, okay? It still didn't even eclipse its all-time high at release during COVID. So these highs you're seeing, like Greninja and Terapagos at these all-time highs at release, look at this. Even this Charizard Reshiram never eclipsed its all-time high at release. And then after COVID, it eroded in value and went down over time, okay? This is probably the most iconic card of Sun and Moon. Everybody wanted to get their hands on the Hidden Fates Charizard GX. It was during the pandemic when all this was all the rage. It only has a 57% 10 rate, so it's not extremely easy to grade. You know, it's decent, right? Even the Charizard could not hold up over time. It came out of the gate crazy hot in the thousands, dipped off. It's all a rise, again, because of COVID, but after COVID ended, it did nothing but erode in value over time, PSA 9 and PSA 10, and it's never recovered, and it's went stagnant. So even the Charizard Shiny GX from Hidden Fates couldn't hold up. Charizard VMAX from Darkness Ablaze. Done nothing but go down and go stagnant. Another extremely iconic card. Towards the tail end of COVID, everybody wanted the Chonkachu from Vivid Voltage. They drove the Vivid Voltage boxes up to near $200 after release because everyone was chasing this Pikachu card. Everybody wanted it. Look at this. It was $2,000 at its heights in a PSA 10, and it did nothing but come down and erode in value over time and go stagnant, okay? Now, these are the ones people point to as outliers. There are outliers. Again, remember what I told you at the beginning of the video. There is a handful of cards in every era that actually stand the test of time, right? They break out of that mold. Latias is one of them. Don't know why it caught fire the way it has. It's actually relatively easy to grade in a PSA 10. But it caught fire, and for whatever reason, everyone wants to chase this card, and it has done nothing but consistently rise over time. Latios, okay? The Mewtwo GX from Shining Legends. Now, it's a unique card. Great looking artwork. It's a Mewtwo. Hard to hit. All that good stuff. It's decently hard to grade. 35% 10 rate, so it's pretty hard to grade. It's got a lot going for it. And it has done well. It has now eclipsed its COVID highs lately. And it has done nothing but continue to rise over time. And then you have the alt arts, right? I'm just going to show you the Moonbreon, but a lot of the alt arts have seen highs greater than what they were when they were released. The Moonbreon has continued to move higher and higher. Again, it's easy to grade. There's tons of them out there, right? But remember, it's iconic. This is now an iconic card. Everybody wants it. It has broke the mold. However, guys, as you can see, if you were trying to be a card picker and you were wrapped up in all the news at the time, you would have been holding a lot of those cards. You would have been holding those Charizards, those tag teams, a lot of those main hits at the time, the Pikachus, and you would have lost considerable amount of money holding those cards. Even the few that you may have had, like the Latios, Mewtwo, whatever, that have gone up over time, they would not have made up for all the money you lost on the rest of the singles. Meaning, singles by and large are a losing proposition. If you're buying near release and you're trying to hold, you're most likely going to be down money over time. Now, can you strike it big? Can you hit the jackpot? Could you be the one holding the alt arts, the Moonbreon, holding, you know, some of these, the Latios, the Mewtwo GX, some of these other cards over time? Sure, you can get lucky, but trying to get lucky is not really a good investment plan. It's like going and playing some, you know, penny stocks or going and playing some altcoins with crypto, or, you know, just trying to, you know, hit it big, getting lucky is not really I can't really give that advice, but hey, if you want to, you know, make those plays and take those chances, go for it. But understand, don't let what I call collector brain take over. Don't justify these purchases at the time saying this card's iconic. Everyone loves, you know, Greninja. It's so hard to pull. It's pretty hard to grade. People are going to want this in the future. Because this set's already expensive. There's not a lot of these boxes left. The packs are going to get more expensive. The cards are going to get more expensive. You come up with all these reasons in your head of why you should hold this card and not sell it. All you have to do is go look at the data, guys. All of those cards I showed you, those were Greninja at the time. Those were Terapagos, right? Those were Magikarp. And so understand this, that very few cards in the entire Scarlet Violet era, I don't care how much you love them, odds are they're not going to perform well. They're going to erode in value over time. They're going to go stagnant, and only a select few of them are going to end up being good investments. Now, it doesn't mean you can't make plays on them. There may be plays when they bottom out and you can buy in at the bottoms and they see small resurgences where you can sell into the strength before they go stagnant or sell off again. And so you can make plays on singles. I make short-term plays. I do very well. You know, being able to read the market, read the, the charts, understand technical analysis, understand how momentum works and how the emotions of the market work, you can do well. But as far as long-term holds, holding these cards for years and years down the road, the way you do booster boxes, this is why I don't do it right here, guys, because all the data tells us on average, you are going to lose over time. So hopefully this video helped, especially the newer people that didn't understand this. Even people who have been in the hobby a while that haven't looked fully into the data, hopefully it's helped you as well. If it did and you enjoyed this kind of content, please subscribe to the channel, and I will be back here in a new video soon. I am out.